name is Doug, and we're turning a glue bomb into a gorgeous classic slot car. This is episode 8. We've got another cryptic name for it. Lose the torso and join the army. What does that mean? Well, we're going to take the figure that goes in a Cox slot car and do some modifications. And we're also going to take a look at one that is not a Cox driver. Now, the problem that we've seen, the Cox driver is very large, probably out of scale. And if you take a look at the car itself compared to the Cox driver, and now take a look at the smaller third-party driver, I kind of think maybe that one's a little more in scale. We're going to adapt both of these figures so, first of all, they fit in the car a lot better, and they're also going to be grabbing a hold of the gear shift because we have the automatic transmission stick built into the interior along with other details that were not in the original cars. Here we go. This figure can sell for like $20 on eBay, an original Cox figure. So we're kind of going at this thing footloose and fancy-free by cutting at it with a rotary disc. Don't worry, we're going to make this guy look even better than he did before. Now, one of the things about the Cox figure itself, the head detail is fantastic. But when you get down to the body, especially the torso area, it doesn't look so great. There's nothing going on there, and it was more or less a molding issue. We're going to cut into this figure and make it look better than it did before. This rather famous Cox driver was gripping the wheel with both hands. He's going to be grabbing a hold of the automatic transmission. Well, you know, it was all leading to this. We're going to cut this dude in half. Oh, I know, it's a very painful thing to do, but you'll see it's going to turn out all for the best. A lot of times I opt to use my X-Acto number 11 blade to do some of this trim work because it just seems to make the parts fit together a little more perfectly than grinding at it with a more powerful tool. You'll see we use both tools interchangeably here, but the main idea is to get this guy to fit and look correct. Now, if I'm thinking straight, cutting that little section out of the guy's torso is actually going to look okay. One of the problems with the Cox driver is his head is fitting way too far above the car, and I'll show you later on when we make the adaptions. You'll see the real difference. Actually, he should be about, half helmet low in the car instead of his entire helmet being up above. It looks like he's just perched there waiting to catch maybe a bug in his mouth. I think there are some stories from these old-timey drivers. What do you do if you swallow a bug? What do you do if nature calls while you're driving during a race? Well, you know, whatever you do it driving. That is one thing that most race fans really don't understand, what great shape these drivers have to be in, especially these long races, the 24-hour, the 12-hour races. They had to be in top condition. As a matter of fact, a few years back, there were a couple of top IndyCar drivers that decided to take part in the NFL football combine. If they had been real football players, they would have ended up being blue chip candidates for the NFL. Well, lately it seems like all roads lead to Milliput, and this, again, is just a polymer that has a chemical reagent. You put the two together, you knead them until they're a nice, beautiful light green, and then it's ready to use. I always dip it in water to make sure that it doesn't stick to your fingers or stick to the tools. And here is where we are from behind the scenes. Look at all the detail that has been placed inside on the right and left pods. Those are actually there in the original cars. Now remember, we haven't done any light sanding with 400 or 600 sandpaper, so that will be done before we paint. Now here is one of the early cars that we're working on. Take a look at him lower in the seat with his hand up on the gear shift. And as we take a look at the third-party driver, he also looks better. Here is the original Cox driver. Now let's take a look at the cut down Cox driver. See, he just looks like he's poised a little bit better with that hand ready to shift. I'm not really sure which of the figures looks better. Hey, you might want to help me out here. Put a message down in the comments if you have a preference. I do think these revised poses actually give a sense of action to the interior of these cars. Well, you'll be glad you stuck around. I have found an interview with Jim Hall, owner of Chaparral Cars.
Mechanical engineer. I made a point of trying to understand the control and stability of cars. Had a test track right there where I could run. Probably an advantage that we had during those days. I could just go out and run, where I think a lot of the teams we were racing against in the 60s didn't have that capability. This is a 1965 Chaparral 2, and it's been derived from the car that we built in 1963. So we put a little kick up on the back of it, and in reality it turns out it's a flap. It's like an airplane flap, a high pressure area right in here, and pushes down on the car. Sure, all that produced a negative force on the car, which allowed it to grip the road better. And the car went faster and faster and faster. So our next step was to build a car that had a lot of downforce on it, but didn't have the drag on the straightaway. And that's where we went from here.
The troops are advancing. We are making this car go from blue bomb to gorgeous. You don't want to miss the next episode. Make this the day you man up and subscribe.